Where's my notes? Where's my stuff? Here, this thing. Remind everyone to sign in and make sure the microphones are turned on when you speak and speak clearly into them so the folks at home can hear you. Our next planning board meeting will be May 5th at 7:30 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton room, which is this room. The next bike pedestrian subcommittee meeting will be April 28th, 7:30 p.m., also in the Matthew Thornton room. However, the bike pedestrian members will also be presenting at this Thursday's town council meeting. Before I go any further, I want to welcome our new alternate member, Jeff Sebring. Let him. I let you all say hello to him. I don't know that he's going to sort of go through a introduction or something.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. He is an alternate member, and that makes two alternates for the board. Nelson's also an alternate, and there's a third person who was interviewed a few minutes ago as an alternate position and may well appear before the town council also on Thursday. So we'll see how that goes. And that would fill all of our alternate positions.
Correct.
With that, for today, I will appoint Nelson to sit in for the vacant full position as a voting member tonight. Tim, it hasn't come up in a while because we haven't had multiple alternates, but Jeff Morissette used to keep for me track of who's been appointed so that we rotate appropriately. Can we make sure that we do that again?
We will start doing that again. And we also have Mike Redding's position, so you could appoint Jeff to vote for that position tonight if you so chose.
You're right. It's good counting the members. I will appoint Jeff to sit in for Mike Redding tonight as a voting member of the board. And so we've got them all covered. Mike Redding, and then Stan's position is vacant.
We still have one
Stan's former position. Yep. So that gives us a full complement of 7 board members voting tonight. With that, we are up to our Planning and Zoning Administrator's report. Tim, do you have anything to report to us?
I do not, since you just basically stole my thunder about the alternate being potentially appointed on Thursday, so I'm good tonight.
There I am doing your job. Any questions for members of the board for Tim or the staff? Seeing none, we'll move on from the Planning and Zoning Administrator's report to item 3 on our agenda, which is Keach Nordstrom Associates Incorporated as the applicant and Valley View Revocable Trust, Carol Maggio, trustee, as the owner. And this is on the agenda for a discussion and possible action regarding a request for a reinstatement of conditional final approval and a 6-month extension for compliance with conditions of approval granted by the Planning Board on July 23, 2013 and July 8, 2014 to subdivide one lot into 2 single-family residential lots located at 15 Valley View Drive in the R Residential District, Tax Map 5C, Lot 142. Tim, would you like me to steal some more of your thunder, or do you want to read the request from the applicant? So we also have at our places today an email from Anthony Basso of Keith Nordstrom Associates saying, Tim, per our discussion, we respectfully request the Merrimack Planning Board defer action on the Valley View project until the May 19th Planning Board hearing. Mr. Maggio has not been able to begin construction yet this spring due to a long and snowy winter. Mr. Maggio has stated to me today that the contractor is scheduled to start May 4th, 2015. Thank you, Anthony Basso. And with that, what's the will of the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, with great respect, with the very greatest of respect, I think that's a load of, yes. Mr. Maggio stated on the meeting on, I forget it, whenever it was, last year, that the conditions of approval would be met within 10 to 14 days. They would be met by December the 15th, 2014 at the latest when the paving plants closed, which is the date they did close. We did suggest a Thanksgiving deadline, which was 60 days. So for Mr. Maggio to blame it all on the long and snowy winter when he originally said he'd get it finished before Thanksgiving is not very honest. And I would just make that comment.
Thank you for that. I don't disagree. Are there any other comments? Tim?
Just to follow up on the conversation I had with Tony from Keach Nordstrom this afternoon, basically the bond for the emergency access road that was part of the administrative approval for the other side of the road is coming due in May. That is basically the one lone missing piece to the subdivision meeting all the conditions of approval for the 2 lots that are before you here tonight. I basically told Mr. Basso that at this stage it's either finish the work or the board will take action on the bond at that May 19th meeting.
Thank you for that update. Lynn?
He says he's gonna start construction on May,
4th, according
Fourth?
to this memo.
He's back to his original contractor. The contractor that was most recently working on the project has gone out of business.
but we're looking for a reinstatement of a conditional approval in order to allow him to do that.
The work associated with that emergency access road actually goes to an administrative approval that we granted back in 2012.
That's a
That was
different
made
project, so-
part of the subdivision that you approved to complete that work. So the bond is actually from the administrative approval that we would be bringing to the board for action. That bond was established by the planning board, I believe, in 2013.
So relate this request to what his comments were regarding this request.
Basically, he felt that at this stage, Mr. Maggio either has to complete the work or the town is going to call the bond. He
I'm
didn't
not
see-
talking about the bond.
Mhm.
I'm talking about this request for reinstatement of conditional approval and a 6-month extension.
Correct. The extension is likely not necessary, it's just a standard way that we word these types of requests.
So what's he talking about starting on May?
Oh, I see what you're
The
saying.
construction of continuing to work on the emergency access road.
Okay, thank you.
When we heard them last summer, in July 8th of 2014, the applicant represented that in the hearing to get his two-lot subdivision, the applicant testified that he was going to complete that access road, and that subsequent to that became a part of this board's view of the two-lot subdivision. And so although he doesn't need our approval of this extension in order to complete the road, completing that road would perhaps make the board more favorably inclined to look at his two-lot subdivision. Anything else? What's the will of the board with respect to the request for continuance?
Could we specify, Mr. Chairman, may I ask, in your suggestion, are you suggesting a continuance date of just till the date he's asked for, which is 19th of May, so that's what we're saying?
The applicant has requested till May 19th. That coincides with the date
That
for
was
the
at my
bond.
suggestion, because that is the same date I will put the bond on the agenda for the planning board as well.
Excuse me, is there a date on the bond by which it'll expire?
The end of May,
End of May.
correct.
Okay, so the 19th.
So the board would need to take action prior to that bond expiring, and that is the last meeting scheduled for May.
I wanted to be sure we were ahead of it.
Could I also ask, Mr. Chairman, and this is really looking at your day job, if we pull the bond, is he still entitled to do the two single family, do the subdivision, or does that go with the bond? If the bond fails, does the two-lot subdivision fail?
If the bond is called, he would still need to come back to the board to get that second lot, because that is part of, that approval has since lapsed. The board would need to take action to reinstate that approval based on the conditions that go back to July of 2013 in order for that second lot to be constructed. The bond is associated with the administrative approval that allowed the construction of the homes on the existing lots of record on the other side of the road.
So the point is that the two-lot subdivision, as it stands today, is not something that can support construction by the applicant.
He does
Without
not
more.
currently have the ability to pull any building permit for that second lot until the subdivision is signed by the planning board.
And that has nothing to do with the bond.
That has nothing to do with the bond.
Okay. So what is the will of the board with respect to the request to continue to May 19th, 2015?
What are we continuing?
The hearing that's on the agenda for tonight to grant a 6-month extension, to reinstate and grant a 6-month extension for the two-lot subdivision. So we are not making a decision on that now until we see by May 19th whether this applicant's got his construction going as he's promised for the 17th time.
What happens if we don't grant this?
Then then he won't have a second lot. And he would essentially have to go through the entire process. If he wanted to come back with that lot, he would need to go through the process from beginning to end again, which essentially what he's asking for is to reinstate the plan as it was approved per the board with the conditions that it had back in July of 2013. He would essentially have to resubmit that as a new application if he wanted to go forward with the two-lot subdivision, if the board were to deny the reinstatement and extension.
What's the will of the board? I can offer my 2 cents in this.
Please do, Mr. Chairman.
I've been out to the site. I went and took a look on Saturday, and it's a disaster. It's a mess for all the reasons that we've talked about in terms of compliance. However, what I'm sensitive to are the people that live nearby and are affected by this. And those folks, as difficult as it is to get Mr. Maggio into compliance and to get him to do the right thing, they're better off if he does than if he is denied and walks away from the property. And that's what makes me say, let's see what happens in a month.
But surely, Mr. Chairman, if we deny and he walks away, the town on the 9th, we had the 19th of May meeting instruct the bond to be pulled. And from what we've heard from Public Works, they feel they could complete the road to the satisfaction of all and sundry.
Yes.
Where does that leave? I mean, I'm asking, and I know I can see one of the residences here.
Yeah.
Where does that leave the residents? Would they basically have a satisfactory road and their property would be protected, or what?
It
The
will
road
be-
isn't the only
it's
issue
not a-
going
It's
out
not a
there.
road. It's an emergency access way.
Sorry, I lose the
Well, the road needs finished.
The road to the emergency access way would be completed in accordance with the design that was approved, part of the administrative approval. And that would be constructed using the funds that are available in the bond, and there is sufficient funds in that bond to also maintain a maintenance bond period of 2 years.
Where would that leave the residents in terms of any damage, anything to do with that? I mean, I looked at it when I went up there on Monday, and you sort of felt that would the bank collapse? There's a lot of ledge there, so I don't think the whole bank's going to wash away. I mean, could we even ask a member of the public who's, I think, a resident, Mr. Chairman, to voice an opinion, or would that be incorrect at this point?
Well, we're not technically in a public hearing, and
All right.
so taking public testimony, particularly with the applicant not present, is probably not the best approach to
All right,
this.
okay.
However, in terms of what we're considering tonight, in the idea of turning this guy down or turning him down in a month if he doesn't get his stuff together, really isn't an enormous difference in terms of the outcome. I think that there are various things that the applicant's committed to do that I would like him to do that are not included in the road bond and all of that stuff. For example, all the destruction that he's done to the neighbor's yard with the grass and the curb and the rock wall and all of that stuff that's been done, that he's committed to fix as a part of what we've told him to do last July. Lynn?
I'd like to move that we grant this continuance.
Is your mic on?
Sorry. I'm going to move that we grant this continuance. We're going to give him a little bit more rope, knowing fully well what he probably will do with it, and encourage those people that are representing him to get him to step up to the plate and do what is right.
I think
Is that the motion?
That's
I'll
the
second
motion.
There's a motion. You second it?
it. I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Council Koenig. Any other discussion? I think that's definitely one of those situations where it's not a satisfactory result, not perfect result, but it's the best result that we can at least do at this moment. What will happen in May, I think, is completely up to what the applicant does between now and then. And frankly, his statement that he's going to start construction on May 4th, to me, tends to show me he ain't taking it seriously enough. He ought to get, that's 2 weeks away. He ought to be able to get construction going sooner than that. May 19th.
May 19th.
And that's my only 2 cents that I would offer before we vote. Tom,
So
did you-
I too went out to the area this evening and
I've
talked
been
to one of the neighbors, Mr. Amika, and understand his frustration and the other neighbors as well. And so it's a little bit reluctantly that we're making this move to continue it to May 19th, but I'd rather see something finished than have it just walked away from. And so I'd rather get it out on the table and make it clear and obvious as to what the solution is than to have somebody just no-show and walk away from it.
Other comments?
Can we suggest that he moves the construction date up?
I think we can suggest. I don't know that we can necessarily demand the construction date, Tim. I mean, we can suggest anything we
You
want.
can
but
suggest all
Yeah.
you want. It's ultimately going to be whatever action he takes between now and then.
our suggestions, and in fact, Mr. Maggio's promises have been,
Empty.
yeah, have no effect yet. No apparent effect on this. I mean, even when you go out there, I don't know if the folks that went out there noticed it, but the couple of barrels that are blocking the road from the south end of the road that he put up following our meeting last July, if you look on the ground, those things are pushed out of the side. There's car tracks through there by the dozens. So apparently those just move out of the way when he feels like using that road, and they are put back for window dressing purposes. So virtually nothing that he's promised to do, not virtually, nothing that he's promised to do has been completed or fulfilled. If there's no other discussion, all in favor of the motion to continue to May 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yep.
One opposed? Any abstaining? That is 6-1-0 with Mr. Milnes opposed. Thank you for everyone for that. That brings us to item 4 on our agenda, which is Old Blood Properties LLC, Joseph K. and Mary L. Cara as the co-applicants and co-owners. Review for consideration of final approval of an application for cluster subdivision proposing 72 cluster residential lots and 4 open space lots located at Old Blood Road in the R1 Residential District, tax map 5B, lot 1-123, 3-1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 231. The item is continued from the December 16th, 2014, January 6th, 2015, January 20th, 2015, February 17th, 2015, March 17th, 2015 planning board meetings. I don't think I've ever gone through that many dates for a continuance, although we did do some work at each one of those, or several of those. Tim, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Just to update the board, we did just receive today the peer review comments from CLD. Those will now allow Ken and the folks at Meridian to continue the work on revisions to the plan and coordinate with Public Works on the various waiver requests so that Kyle will have a comfort level on making recommendations on those waivers. And I anticipate that Ken will give you an update as to where things stand right now and the plan moving forward into May.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Let's please proceed with your presentation. Tell us what you got.
Thank you, and good evening, board members. For the record, my name is Ken Clinton with Meridian Land Services, representing Old Blood Properties in this application. As Tim just outlined briefly, we just received some CLD comments today, this afternoon. While I did have a chance to scan them, I'm not exactly intimate with all of them. I'm happy to say that my scan results in very few, if any, substantial comments that would affect our overall design. A lot of housekeeping things, things that we anticipated to follow up with DPW or wastewater, et cetera. I do want to bring you through a couple of changes, and to do that, I'm going to open up the presentation plan that I shared last time we were here. Internal of the subdivision, there was some discussion as we come off of Old Blood Road down in this section and transition into the subdivision. There was a question about this intersection here where we have lot 42 shown. Just to the east of lot 42, we were depicting a sewer line with the required 20-foot access, and that was actually a bit of a leftover feature. Just prior to this particular revision, we had a stormwater basin on this side slope, and we were in the process of finalizing some of our drainage calculations, and we had reserved that area, and quite frankly, we believed we would need a basin here, and the stormwater basin itself would have required access for DPW maintenance in the future. So it wasn't a stretch to keep our sewer along this route with a common access and have this road enter in this capacity, in this fashion. We've since revised that, which I'll show you in a minute. We made a 4-way intersection out of that and cleaned it up, and that was partly one of the earlier comments from DPW, and it's worked out quite nice. Another aspect of this plan when last you saw it was our wetland crossings. We had proposed 1-to-1 slopes at each of the wetland crossings to minimize the impact and to try to fit the road improvements within certain constraints for these two, the southerly and the northerly impacts that are our entrances, if you will, and exits to the subdivision. In this particular location, we have a vernal pool to the south, located here. And to the north, we have an existing easement with an abutter who is not party to this application, a separate and individual landowner, which already that lot was subject to a 35-foot easement. So this particular crossing with the 1-to-1 slope, we could fit all of the required features in, road plus grass strip and sidewalk. Similarly, to the north, near the Madeline Bennett intersection, we had 1-to-1 slopes likewise within the existing Old Blood right-of-way. And again, that right-of-way is a bit of a variable width because it was an ancient right-of-way that is currently Class 6 and unused. So in that location, we were working within constraints between the school property and the neighbors on Merry Meeting Place. And so I'll exit out of last planning board's presentation and I'll move into our current one. And here you can see we've reconfigured this intersection to be a four-way intersection that co-locates the sewer line, and the sewer line was placed in that location because of gravity flow. If we had tried to zigzag, if you will, the sewer up into that previous location, it would have had to been quite deep in order to accomplish that, and it really wasn't necessary. In this location, it is a shallower and all gravity system. Once we realized we didn't need that stormwater basin just to the west, or the east that is, of the road, we simply flip-flopped the road into a four-way intersection and reconfigured lot 42 on that other side. So it's quite a good fix, a good resolution, and it's really born out of the lack of need to have a stormwater basin there, which actually helps out with the abutter and the vegetation that's between the new subdivision and this gentleman at the corner. So that's probably the biggest change of the plans for you to consider. As far as other changes, well, we took those 1-to-1 slopes to DPW, Kyle Fox, and trying to get some endorsement and some support relative to some waivers that we were going to be asking. I had shared with you last time I was here that we were going to seek the 1-to-1 slopes for our wetland crossings, and Kyle was very firm and adamant that he could not support that. From a maintenance standpoint, I do get it. He says that's just not something that they can effectively maintain in the future. And to honor his position, we asked for a compromise. If we would be able to do 2-to-1 slopes, and then, where necessary, have limited retaining walls. In a minute, I'll go to our plan and profile view, but we're proposing a short section of retaining wall just opposite station 33+00. And I guess what I'll do is let me just open this back up, and it's a little bit more clear to see. Here's that same area I'm talking about. And this note, install retaining wall, station 3195 to 3356, it's approximately 2 feet high. The trade-off there is that the 2-to-1 slopes are a bit easier and manageable for DPW in the future to maintain. The trade-off is that we are now impacting a wider footprint, if you will, and can't catch the grading entirely within both the right-of-way as well as the adjacent easement on the landowner's parcel, which was reserved for just these purposes, slope and drainage, etc. The retaining wall, if you will, we intend that to be large rectangular blast rocks, because there's going to be a fair amount of blasting in subsequent phases. Phase 2, I'll call it, of road construction. And we know that there's going to be plenty of stones available on site for this type of a thing. And when we say retaining wall, it's hard to envision that a 2-foot high section of some rocks lined up is technically a wall, but it is, because it is actually allowing us to have a vertical face or nearly vertical face, so the 2-to-1 slopes can catch up to the road. The one drawback on this is last time we were here, I shared some of the difficulties in this particular crossing, and we suggested that we may look to eliminate the 3-foot wide grass strip on the sidewalk, or if necessary and we couldn't fit it all in, we may come back and ask for a waiver to remove the sidewalk from this section. Given the grading constraints, I'm here to let you know that we are going to be asking for a waiver to remove sidewalk from this section. It's not our first choice. We made a commitment when we were here to try to work out an arrangement that it could be kept. We've done so in good faith, and in discussing it with Kyle Fox, as far as he's concerned, he would much prefer to have the 2-to-1 slopes with the retaining wall. And if you, I'm not sure, Tim, did the board receive Kyle Fox's April 20th comments?
Yes, I sent them out by email.
Item number 5 in Kyle's email states, Public Works supports the concept of no sidewalk from station 30+0 to 36+0 due to the width restrictions of the vernal pool. And once again, we have a vernal pool on this side that, from a wetland standpoint, in our pre-application meetings at DES, that was a critical feature that they didn't want us going anywhere near. So we don't have the ability to carry the grading to the opposite side in this general vicinity. Furthermore, one of the CLD comments today, I'll note it's on page 4, item 3G. They note that due to vernal pool restrictions, the applicant has not shown paved pedestrian facilities to be constructed between station 29+50, slightly different in stationing, and 36+50 within the subdivision. They go on to note that perhaps some sign considerations could be put up to warn people that there's no sidewalks in that section, and quote unquote there may be some pedestrians moving about. Understanding that several of the board members specifically asked us to pursue the sidewalk and not just eliminate it without due consideration, I will say we did try. I will say that this connection from the internal loop, if you will, and once again I'll go back to the overall, the internal loop where we have 71 lots, every one of the proposed 71 lots has sidewalks along its frontage. Sidewalks will start, if the waiver is granted, at this intersection, fully wrapping around the loop. They'll be on the spur that heads west to the next undeveloped parcel, and they certainly will be extending all the way down to the school entrance. So all of the new residences and all of the rest of the internal roads will have sidewalks. Just this connection piece that joins the existing Old Blood Road, which does not have sidewalks, and this spur that had been approved separately, which had sidewalk requirement waived back in 2004, and additionally waived for this 4th lot, which occurred a couple of years ago. Just this section that joins the existing Old Blood will not, as we propose it now. I know to some of you it's less than ideal, but given the circumstances, I don't know that we have options to squeeze that all in.
Ken, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When you said the 72 lots will all have sidewalks along their frontage, that could be interpreted to mean there's going to be sidewalks on both sides of the road. Is that what you meant?
No, directly in front. The sidewalk at this point is on the internal side of the loop, on the inside. I meant directly opposite where the lot is, and
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
No, we certainly weren't suggesting or proposing sidewalks on both sides of the new roads.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood you correctly, because it
Appreciate
sounded like when you said the frontage, that was both sides. Is there an ability to have sidewalks on part of that spur and then just not in that little area where it narrows by the wetland?
Yes.
How wide is that area by the wetland? And
Well, it would be in the area of 200 lineal feet perhaps that would not be able to have them. I certainly understand and could respect a request to have sidewalks extend to the 2-to-1 slopes. I don't know it would be reasonable to then have a section that doesn't have them and then have a short section that, once again, then does have them. When there's no connection down here as we're rejoining Old Blood proper, the road.
yeah, I get you. If you did have that little gap as you cross the vernal pool, could you bring the sidewalk to the street so that people are on a paved surface if they have a stroller or a wheelchair or something that rolls?
Oh, sure, yeah, a little turn off so there's a slight break in the curbing.
Mhm.
Yes,
What kind of
absolutely.
signage would sort of follow what CLD is suggesting?
I don't exactly know.
Watch for
I don't know that
pedestrians.
I don't know that I've ever
pedestrians in the road or
encountered
kids
that.
at play or something.
They don't exactly say. It's left open to a little bit of interpretation, and I figured that's something I would bring up and discuss with Kyle Fox.
What kind of speed limits are going to be imposed in the internal roadways?
Generally, they wouldn't be posted necessarily, so that's a default of 30.
Certainly wouldn't want to see 30 if you're going to have pedestrians in the road right there. Nelson, you're trying to get a comment in. I wouldn't
Well,
want
if we want to discuss the sidewalk situation, I'd like to chime in. First of all, I'd like to ask, if the retaining wall were higher, wouldn't that give you more space and to still stay within the 2-to-1 slope and have a sidewalk?
At this point, yes, it would. If we
Yeah.
brought that to, say,
A 6-foot wall.
6 to 8 foot high wall.
Yeah.
We did discuss that with Kyle at, I believe, 6 feet from a maintenance standpoint. From an OSHA standard, you have to have chain link fence on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And granted, Kyle's perspective, and I can't speak for him, he's obviously looking at maintenance of all features of the right-of-way, not just the side slope itself. And the difficulty here is that the retaining wall, as if you will, is designed virtually at the very edge of the easement.
That's
We're right
another
up against
question
that
I
point.
had. Yeah.
And so, where a 2-foot wall, if you will, really does not have much maintenance at all to it, as soon as you start to elevate that to 6 to 8 feet high, then there is a larger expectation that you're going to have additional width at the face to
Mhm.
then be able to have personnel, perhaps some other machinery, if you will, or maybe even heavy equipment to some degree in the future. I don't know. So there's an expectation that there's going to be a wider space available for that. And so, in fact, a couple of Kyle's comments in his own personal review state that even at 2 feet, he would like additional space and width for access on the face of any wall. We just
Yeah,
simply don't
so-
have that room. Even if we went to the 6 feet or 8 feet, I don't believe, we looked at an array of options with different slope calculations, whether it was 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, with different height wall scenarios, and we sat down and said, these are all of the various possibilities that we can consider and mix and match them. And quite frankly, this is the preference that we've arrived at.
Based on maintenance considerations?
The overall design plus maintenance considerations.
What do you mean
And-
by overall design?
Well, being the 2-to-1 slopes versus 1-to-1 slopes, how much fill, the volume of fill, the impact of the wetlands, the square footage impact of the wetlands as well, the nature of the construction. It wasn't just a single view. We tried to look at this in multiple ways, and then the benefit to the public as far as the sidewalk goes, the amount of sidewalk that was being constructed throughout the subdivision, the ability for the new owners to be able to use that, and then the connectivity down to the school. In the larger picture, it's a, I guess you want to call it a benefit to cost ratio. You analyze that and say, is that one section of sidewalk absolutely warranted in this case? And at this point in the design, we've come to the conclusion that it isn't in this particular location, given the circumstances. If we didn't have the constraints that we have, and these were, again, I don't want to harp on it, but these were inherited by us, this location, the configuration, it's possibly not what any of us would have chosen in hindsight on how this project developed over the years before we got involved, but we're trying to do the best we can, and I can agree that it makes sense to extend the sidewalk down to where the 2-to-1 slopes start, but I guess I'm looking for the board, since we're not asking for any formal waivers tonight. This was out of all the waivers I've discussed the last time I was here, this is really the one that is different. The rest are the same, where we're looking for some slope relief, eliminating the green strip from the other end, a couple of minor road grade waivers that all of these other waivers we were waiting for Kyle to feel comfortable with the CLD review before he weighed in on. We didn't think it was appropriate to formally ask for those until he responded in a more informed way. But this is the one that I knew you were probably more interested out of all, and I need your input.
You guessed right. Lynn?
If we waive the sidewalks in this area that you're asking, can I make the assumption that what we're doing is stopping the sidewalks short of extending them through the entire project? We're stopping them short of the entire at some point. And how many lots would be eliminated from having a sidewalk?
No lots would. Lots from, that are within this particular application
Yep.
or adjacent? No lots as part of this application would lose sidewalk access.
So you're essentially just stopping the sidewalk short of coming to Old Blood Road.
As we leave the existing
Right.
Old Blood Road down here in the corner.
Yep.
And we make our first wetland crossing, Lot 1 is directly on the corner.
Yep.
It would have sidewalk access
So there are no
right through here.
lots affected by waiving these sidewalks.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, except to the extent that people that live in those lots want to walk down Old Blood Road to go towards Wilson Hill Road.
But if,
Yeah.
but
they're
if,
don't-
gonna
There's no
hit-
sidewalk
There's no
there.
sidewalk.
But they don't
there's
have
no
to-
sidewalks on Old Blood, so we're just stopping the sidewalks
A little
a
shorter than
little,
what
a
it's
little
gonna look like.
short
A little
of
short
Old Blood.
The edge of the property,
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, there's no formal request. I'm not looking for a vote tonight because we weren't prepared to get to that point. I'm merely looking for comments and some level, if you will, unofficial comments that is this reasonable to us to proceed in this fashion? Or is this something that the board feels we have to reapproach Kyle to discuss? Once again,
Kyle will
I know
come
it's
yell at us if we do that. That's right.
I would support waiving the sidewalks if it were to come to a vote, and in this case, just for that section
Just
of
for
Old
that.
Blood Road, that connection, because there is none down on
And-
Old Blood.
And I'm certainly here to say we are very willing to extend the sidewalk down to the point where a safe connection prior to the 2-to-1 slopes can be brought back, so there's another couple hundred lineal feet, if that makes the difference. I know it's not as much as everybody might like, but I'm certainly happy to do that.
Lynn?
I'd prefer the 2-to-1 slopes with shortened distance on the sidewalks than the 1-to-1 slopes.
So bring sidewalks sort of down that little piece, but just skip it that little bit by the wetland? Is that what you mean?
Just stop it short.
So you'd kind of have a stub of sidewalk above it and below it, and then when you get down to Old Blood Road, it would stop there.
Yeah, there's
So,
nothing down beyond that.
Approximately 34 plus 00 would we, in that range is where we would bring that, which is at this location right here.
I
So
would,
you're just talking about above it, not below it, so just,
No.
It would be from 34 plus 00 to the intersection to the northwest. We could add that if the board felt it was,
I wouldn't envision a gap in a sidewalk.
No.
I would envision bringing the sidewalk as far as you can reasonably
Yep.
with the 2-to-1 slopes, and then stopping.
and that's where station 34 plus 00 is
Yeah.
approximately.
so give it a little curve to get the strollers
To
or
the street.
wheelchairs
And
onto
connect with
Yeah.
the street, yeah,
Yeah.
that.
and then let it go right there. I support this. I mean, I'm in favor of having the sidewalk if we could get it in, and I'm glad that you've done the work to do it. But what I think about is that the number of homes in this subdivision is not that dissimilar than the street that I live on, and I'm not uncomfortable walking down the road that I live on with that number of homes. There's traffic, but it's reasonably paced and relatively sparse, where I don't feel like if a car's coming that it's,
Yeah.
Of course, I don't walk on it when the snowbanks are 6 feet tall, but.
Good, because we're not likely to clear that sidewalk either. so-
Yeah. That's true. Nelson, you look like you got something.
Well,
nice.
I'm not yet persuaded that this is the best way to go, but I guess we could live with that. I'm not persuaded that they really investigated thoroughly the possibility of a higher, the effects of a higher wall. And I still see Kyle Fox's comments in here about wanting 5 feet between the wall and the easement edge, which I don't see on this plan, so,
In fact, yeah, Kyle's comments just came out on Monday. He
yeah.
was hopeful to wait until the CLD comments came in, which just for this afternoon.
Yeah.
So, one of my closing comments for this evening was gonna be, I will go through Kyle's comments, cross-checking with CLDs, and he and I typically have a meeting that we go through any of the comments that need his input and review. And we did go through, as I suggested, a range of scenarios about different wall heights and different slopes, and what that effect was in the impact of the width, what could be fit within there, and then we are limited in the width. I mean, that's the finite point here, that if we bring the wall in 5 feet minimum to satisfy his access along the face, it already will get taller or higher.
Mhm.
If then we try to fit in sidewalks, then it
Mhm.
will get even higher.
Yes.
And therefore, is it gonna be over 10 feet to 12 feet high in the retaining wall? Possibly. And I'm quite certain that that's not something that he would like to maintain. However, I'll have this conversation with him again, saying that, there was some on the board that still felt, we need to revisit it to some degree. I'm not
Okay, I would
opposed-
appreciate it if
I'm
you
not
would
opposed
do
to
that.
doing that.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't mind hearing a little bit more. Explore it, explore it as much as you can.
No.
Yeah. Can I change the subject a little bit? In your
Sure.
introduction to this, you were talking about having gravel on site and blasting and all of that, and it wasn't so much my question about that, but you used the word phase 2 in this, which tells me you've thought about phasing, and we've been wanting to hear about phasing for a while.
Phasing in a road sense, less so much in a building lot control, if you will. This project's far too large for anybody to think that someone's gonna come in here and punch this thing out with all these roads. Recognizing dead-end road length and how this best would be done, our anticipation is that we have to upgrade and come in with these 2 entrance points and be able to connect them, likely both from Madeline Bennett to the north, as well as from Old Blood to the south, plus have some level of lots to start developing. So a dead end certainly would not happen if we came in through and started constructing both sides of this. This is important because it's the downslope sections where we need to establish drainage first. So it is important for us to come in on the downslope side, establish some of the basins so some of this stormwater runoff during construction can be collected and treated. I don't know firsthand if someone would then like to start this section of road and come in, and we have an area that's reserved for a temporary hammerhead turnaround here at just about the dead end length. Or I
You
don't.
have a place, or you're not sure if you
We do
would
have a place. Yeah,
Okay.
it's actually graded. I want to say
Which one of my pages is it on?
it's going to be lot 52, 53. Let me switch over to that plan set. Couple more. It's actually, the first one is lot 8 and 9. You can see in our plans, we have a construction phase, construction being the road, a hammer turnaround, so this is going to be in a temporary easement on lot 9. It could also double for the driveway entrance for lot 9. And it's put there, 1, because of dead-end road lengths, 2, the minimal nature of the road grading in that area. As you can see, our proposed grading's off to the side, and what you have here is a high point. You can see this grade here where my hand is, and this one here. So this is at a point in the road where there's minimal amount of grading, so a temporary turnaround makes sense there and meets the dead-end needs as far as length.
Okay, I understand that you wouldn't necessarily know today whether that would be a phase or an early phase. That gets you about 10 lots down the road. Is that the size of chunks you anticipate phases being? 10,
It has
12 lots?
it has less to do with the number of lots at any given time, more to do with the road lengths to keep them below the dead end threshold. Ian's have a temporary turnaround at a location that's very limited impact from a grading and drainage standpoint of having to bring in fill, if you will. We could force just because more lots were desirable, we could force a turnaround on a side slope that then there would have to be a substantial impact, and it wouldn't make any sense.
Well, your dead end road limitation is 1,250 feet, right?
1,200?
1,200. So from that four-way intersection, as you go up those lots, are you saying that you would go something short of 1,200 feet in a phase?
It's the goal to be just about 1,200. It mean we, quite frankly, might be a little bit over on one or two of them, but I don't know the exact number. It's the goal to be at that vicinity. We haven't talked about the actual turnaround locations of any phase construction, so it is a good question. It's a good time to bring it up, but I don't know that we hit that dead on, and especially since we just reconfigured our four-way intersection, that I don't know that I've revised my lineal footage for each one of those. The other one, incidentally, is on lots 27 and 28. It's in the same fashion. We're at a point in the road, virtually the high point, where the grading is very minimal to be able to have a temporary turnaround there. And again, it's for road construction. Less to do and really no configuration or thought for number of lots.
Tim, how does the phasing affect the bond requirement? Did they bond the whole thing in the beginning, or they bond it phases at a time, or what?
Having not had to do one of these in Merrimack, I'm not sure exactly how Public Works has handled these in the past. Certainly an answer I can have for the next meeting after I chat with Kyle about it.
I don't have an answer for that either at this point.
Mr. Chairman, could one ask, you can't put any of the lots up unless you've got drainage and town water, and that surely the drainage has to go down towards Madeline Bennett and that end.
Yeah, that's why he's talking about doing that part. Whatever is phase one, those two legs are going to be part of it.
Well, it could be that phase one is, say, the southerly leg, if you want to call it that. Phase two might be the northerly leg. Phase three might be to connect them in the loop, and phase four might be the spur that heads out to the west. But that...
No, we're looking at the Madeline Bennett connection and the Old Blood Road connection. That those two legs, with no lots on them, are early in the process, obviously, because
Yes.
you got to get the water, the sewer up there,
Correct.
the drainage, which you just started talking about a minute ago, saying
That's
you
correct.
got to get that downslope stuff done.
Yeah.
But
So-
you can't build a lot anywhere unless you've got the drainage set up.
Right, that's what he said.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's-
fair enough. I just understand that.
And utilities.
But your first phase is going to be big enough that you're going to have enough lots to put the money in the bank that's going to go towards all of that other road that doesn't have any lots on it.
Theoretically, that's not my part of the business.
I got you.
I think we want it to be part of our business when we come
Yeah.
to give a final
I understand the
approval.
question,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to just shrug it off, but
Yeah.
that's we've had these discussions as far as how to set this up as far as locations, but the timing and the schedule, I don't know it would be set, and that would be something that could be part of the notations or the structure procedurally at this time.
How many linear feet are all the way around the loop? Not the two legs to Madeline Bennett and Old Blood, but just completely around the circle.
From 3,600 to 8,800, so
So a mile
52, yeah.
plus the little spurs. A
Plus
little
the
bit
spur
more.
to the west.
Well, mile of pavement ain't cheap.
But I understand the question, and that's something that was on the list to comment on.
Okay. Now, when you do have a more developed phasing plan in that, I think that, from my viewpoint, what Alistair was getting at, the drainage and other things that sort of are in the service of the entire subdivision have to be part of that first phase. And then the things that are sort of incremental, like the roadway in front of a particular group of lots or the water line down the middle of the road for those group of lots can sort of be part of the phase, but those sort of elements, whatever they are, that support everything, gotta come on early. If you follow what I'm saying.
Oh, I do. Yeah, for instance, if we take a look at, it was 28, 27 at this location for the temporary turnarounds on the northerly end. Obviously, lots that don't have, completed frontage from a pavement and utility standpoint certainly wouldn't be able to have a CO. And I mean, that's just goes without saying. So when we develop maybe a schedule of where we think the phasing would most logically be scheduled, we could have numbers that go with those, and it would just make things more clear.
In terms of phasing, and I know that I'm probably getting way further down this road than you can answer, but what does the owner applicant envision in terms of the amount of time it takes to fully develop the site?
I certainly don't have that answer right now.
The reason that I'm asking that is that with respect to the amount of time that a bond is allowed to exist before it gets called or dealt with affects that. So
Understood.
if you're posting a road construction bond and we're going to hold it for 2 years, but you know in advance that you're not going to get to phase X till the 5th year, then you're definitely going to be bonding it in pieces
Agreed.
as opposed to bonding the whole way through. And I know
And quite frankly, there's likely to be overlap. As one phase is being nearly completed, another phase might be transitioned already underway, and so there'll be overlapping bonds. So I think the burden is on us as the applicant to provide you with what the expectations would be.
yeah, it might be an affordable way to approach it too, because as you reduce the bonds in one area, you can just apply it to the next.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's all the questions. I'm sorry to torture phasing to death, but that's all the questions I
No,
have.
it was on my list to bring up too. Does anybody else, just to follow up on the sidewalk item, does anybody else have any comments to share? I think I have a good pulse of where I need to be or what else I need to follow up on, but.
Nelson, you got your hand
Okay, I think you've gotten my comments on
Sure.
the Station 34 and that area. I wanted to ask one other thing. Looking at this sidewalk going toward Madeline Bennett School,
Sure.
it appears to me that a person who wanted to walk from this loop road to the Madeline Bennett School would certainly like to have a cut-through.
It's a fairly steep slope
If there
through there,
isn't a
though.
legal one, they may make one.
A cut through to the school itself?
No, just a cut-through to the road again.
Yeah.
You see,
Down-
right
Right down
there.
your arrow's going. Walk that way.
I would suspect someone would like to have a cut through downslope, but upslope, that's
You need to stay
25
away.
plus percent.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they work both ways, and you don't have to use them.
your legs do work both ways.
Yeah.
I understand the point, but I don't think that's feasible in this particular design, especially given the side slope cuts we have through here. It's going to be prohibitive, and we expect that we're going to be into some ledge through this section. So the cut through might have some rappelling gear associated with it.
Yes.
I don't know that that's,
Might
quite
have
frankly,
some
I don't
one-
believe it's feasible.
Yeah, I think that you'd be not ADA compliant when you get over 10% slope on a
No.
sidewalk, or
You know,
8% slope on a
But,
sidewalk.
from a trail standpoint, it's, given the set aside for open space and the configuration of what we have, then that would require a marked location that someone would be able to have an easement through two adjacent properties through there. I'm willing to bet that people might think that might be a good idea once, and then say that doesn't make any sense, and they'll stay on the pavement and the sidewalk.
It depends, yeah, the kids will figure it out. Yeah.
Well,
No.
Again, I guess kids will be kids, and they'll,
Yeah.
this is quite a big playground out here, once you leave the lots
Yeah.
and get into the open space and then the adjacent conservation land. It's a big, wide open expanse, there's gonna be plenty of room for the kids to wander about.
Okay, you figure that continues all the way down. I didn't look at the topography.
Yeah, even off-site, then we get into, quite frankly, the school property where we have limited rights we don't
Yeah,
have the,
No, I wasn't thinking,
necessarily the rights to further create trails.
pardon?
We don't necessarily have the further right to create trails on the school
Yeah.
property.
No, I wasn't suggesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the applicant's property specific, those slopes are too steep to begin with, then we're going to have to cut into them to some degree. And that's one of the waiver items that we will ask for, if there's stable ledge, that we might be able to hold a one-to-one slope like we've done in the past, as long as the ledge is solid enough, not friable and loose, and could cause a problem. And we asked for that and received that waiver, similar to other projects. So we'll be asking for that as well.
Thank you for that. Other comments or questions for Ken? Desiree?
One really quick one. The lots, are they gonna be custom built, like the houses that are going on them? Is it gonna be like pre-designed, like model homes?
Like a single builder with a small handful of models, I suppose,
Yeah.
is that? I can't answer that question. I do know that the particular developer is not necessarily looking to be the builder. Whether this gets sold to a single developer that has control of all of the model styles of the homes, or if whomever develops this has a range of individual builders, I don't know.
Okay.
It could be either one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Other comments or questions? Any abutters or interested citizens wish to weigh in? Going once? Okay. Please come forward. Do you want to sit down or stand up, or what's better for you?
If I may sit.
Yes, please. Don't forget to sign in and take your time to do that. And then make sure the microphone's close enough to you. I'm not doing a fairly good job of at the moment.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself.
All right. My name is Rebecca Statz. I'm an employee of Student Transportation of America, but I want to say right off, I'm not speaking on behalf of Student Transportation. I am a school bus driver and have lived in Merrimack for 9 years, driven a bus in Merrimack for 8.5. I remember when the middle school came in. I wanted to say that I know that there are a number of bus drivers who are concerned about the use of Madeline Bennett for the traffic for this development. As it is, we have 2 waves of buses. We have 37 full-size buses plus provider vans for the special needs students and the exceptional population. We also have, any given day, anywhere from 0 to 5 charter buses coming in and going for school teams, groups, competitions. We have coach buses coming in addition for ski teams. At the moment, all of that coming and going, it's extremely congested and extremely difficult for myself as a bus driver. That is one of the hot spots of my driving day, morning and afternoon, when I need to be on top of my game and aware of what's going on with the parents, with the students on bicycles and skateboards coming up and down Madeline Bennett, sometimes on the sidewalk, sometimes not. We do have, in the afternoon, we have 2 waves of buses that approach the school, as you probably well know. The first wave goes up and loads, the second wave lines up on Madeline Bennett. I have perhaps the unique qualification here, I guess, of being the first bus in the second wave. So I pull in and have to stage myself right in that cutout in order for us all to fit on Madeline Bennett for the second wave. And we stay there for, I would say, average 7 to 10 minutes in the afternoons to get the first wave in, loaded, and out Madeline Bennett before I lead the second wave up to the school to load our students. In that time, we do frequently have delivery trucks come up and try to cut in front of us, or, get in there, do what they need to do, understandably so. However, when you add a row of buses on Madeline Bennett with another row of moving traffic in one direction and another row of moving traffic in the other direction, it gets extremely difficult. I have had the unfortunate experience of being there with second wave when there has been an emergency at the school, and we have had to try to get all the buses as far over as possible because first wave was coming down and we signaled them to stop, but had they stopped up at the top, emergency vehicles could not get all the way up to the school where they needed to be. So we've had a major congestion issue. I remember that was very clearly. That was a headache for everyone involved. I was thinking myself, is there a way to make it perhaps a one-way usage during certain hours of the day, such as McElwain right outside here? However, again, as a bus driver, I see things that, perhaps you wouldn't, so I wanted to bring to you my perspective that please do not do that. I have to make the turn and lead the second wave in that right turn from Babusick Lake Road onto McElwain, and it's really an unenforceable thing. Our police department does not have the time to have an officer stationed out there to enforce that one way, and as a result, on any given day, I would say there are probably 7 to 10 cars coming out that way, which make it difficult and tie up the traffic right out here for us. I don't think that having a one-way traffic situation, in my own humble opinion, would be an effective fix. So basically, I wanted to say that, I beg you to consider the ramifications and consequences of adding non-school traffic to Madeline Bennett, which is already very thickly and heavily used and risky at times as it is standing now. Our concern, my concern as a parent and as a townsperson and as a bus driver is for the safety of the students and for the parents who are coming and driving and for the buses and the bus drivers. I'm concerned about the safety of having this much traffic tossed onto Madeline Bennett. I'm concerned about if we have that during this much time in the afternoon, not even in the afternoon, just during the morning and at the heaviest usage times at the school. That impact, and now I have lost my train of thought, I apologize.
Take your time.
My school bus left without me.
Don't let us make you stressed.
Perhaps it'll come back. But I wanted to say it certainly adding that much traffic will affect, yes, there it is, will affect the efficiency of the buses getting up there and down, and will affect our pickups and timing at the schools. What happens for us at Madeline Bennett, especially in the afternoon, sets the tone for every other school. If we get held up, if second wave gets held up at Madeline Bennett, that means that Reeds Ferry and Mastercola don't get their buses until later. And the domino effect can be devastating. If we have traffic coming in, this was the thought that tried to escape me, if we have traffic coming into the cutout on Madeline Bennett, will the buses still be allowed to stage there? If not, where will you have us stage? That's 37 buses. You know, that's not an insignificant line of yellow. Perhaps, you know, thinking we frequently have to make use of the soccer field at the end of Madeline Bennett. However, during the winter and during inclement seasons, that is not a viable option. I know over this past winter we had a number of buses get stuck and have to be pulled out. So that's, you know, please consider what the impact on not only the school but the students and the transportation, the whole thing. And I know that you do, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak my mind about it, about what I feel very strongly to be a major concern. Okay.
Thank you very much for your certainly very passionate and firsthand account of things. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to weigh in and offer some testimony? Please come on forward.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sure.
You said 37 buses?
There are 37 buses, standard-sized buses for the town of Merrimack. Again, that does not include.
I'll just repeat what she said.
That does not include charter buses, that does not
I'm just
include-
talking standard buses.
That's
Okay.
standard buses for the majority of the student population per day.
Okay. Let me repeat what you said at a microphone just for the benefit of anyone at home. 37 standard buses per day, not including any other specialty or special needs buses, is the usual traffic flow for the middle school at Madeline Bennett.
You're,
Per day, twice per day.
Twice per day.
you're saying 37 buses in the morning and 37 buses in the afternoon to the middle school only? Okay.
Thank you for that.
But just for clarification, that includes both phases that she was talking
Two
about.
waves, but I'm
Two
saying.
waves.
Right. Only half at a time.
I understand.
Just wanted to clarify.
Okay. You've had a chance to sign in, so please introduce yourself and tell us what's on your mind.
I'm Lorette Seelum.
You just switched it off. There you go.
Give you that information.
There you go. Try again.
Okay, my name is Lorette Seelum, and I drive a school bus. Have been driving for 40 years, and I guess the safety of the kids and the parents that are using Madeline Bennett and dropping off kids, and everybody is in a great rush. And how they're planning on doing this, I guess stop signs don't always work because the California rolling stop is not a good.
It's always interesting to see what part of the country people attribute those rolling stops to. California for some folks, and people say, yeah, Florida, whatever.
Yeah. And also that hill on Madeline Bennett is an ice skating rink as we go through our seasons in New England. And it's going to be an accident waiting for a place to happen. And with kids and school buses and cars, it's just an overly congested area that I see an accident waiting for a place to happen before we do something with it.
I understand. Thank you for your testimony, unless you have more to offer.
No,
Thank-
she said it all.
She did. She was very articulate. Did a good job.
Actually, I thought of something else.
Oh, well, hang on. If you want to have a second thought, you got to come back to a microphone. Thank you so much for coming forward and testifying.
Thanks. Again, my name is Rebecca Statz, and I never even considered when the gentleman mentioned blasting, and obviously that would have to occur. That will also be of concern with the safety for everyone with the radio usages, because the buses do use two-way radio constantly. That is just an essential. I can't imagine how we could possibly manage without having that, and how to manage the timing of blasting to when the buses could be using their radios would be extremely limiting to the developers, but also potentially very problematic for the buses. And as Mr. Disco suggested, kids are going to find a way to get from point A to point B. Add that to kids, so to speak, popping out of the woods at random spots and trying to get across to school, especially I live 30 seconds away from school. I don't need to get up, an hour early. Again, add another accident waiting to happen, as Laurette said.
Thank you for that. I'm sure that if this ultimately is approved and gets to the point of having some blasting, the people who do that are going to be particularly attuned to that issue, because you see it everywhere that they know about the two-way radio issue. Thank you for that, Ms. Stats. Any other members of the public wish to weigh in? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Are there more comments or questions by members of the board for the applicant? Ken, do you need anything else from us?
I think I saw Tim's hand up.
Tim?
I do have one item. Did receive an email from Matt Chevenel from the school district that I just wanted to read into the records just so the board was aware. The school district would like to see the wetlands permits at the same time it's presented to the State of New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. We reserve the right to comment to NHDES directly on any disturbance involving the school and property in our current easement area. I'm sure all will be according to the original easement that allowed the town minor encroachments into the easement area for the purposes of upgrading Old Broad Road from Class 6 to Class 5 only. If this is something you can't provide, please point me in the correct direction. Sincerely, Matt Chevenel.
Did Matt address that to us or to the applicant?
It was addressed to Diane, actually, which was forwarded to me, and I've just forwarded to Ken because I had neglected to send it to him earlier in the week.
Matt and I had also corresponded on that, and I told him when we would submit to the town, we'd make sure he got a copy. We delayed our DES submission until we received the CLD comments to make sure there was nothing substantive that we'd have to change our design. And quite frankly, the retaining wall and slope issue was one of the main reasons why we held our DES submission, because we need the square foot impact and the associated design around that to be able to submit to DES. So
no, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you're going to provide him the information that he wants. Technically, as a property owner, you have to, don't you?
Not a full. We agreed that we would give him a copy of the permit itself, which is not necessarily done for butters.
I gotcha.
But given the circumstances, I already committed to do that, so that's not a problem. And I apologize. I probably should have given him a schedule update, but we really needed to wait for CLD and a better idea of the resolution of the waivers, so we can submit to DES with the correct design and square foot impact.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing, I think if we think of the last meeting, you'll know that the views I expressed at the time basically been echoed by the two members of the public who I admit I know quite well from my service. I have to say that if the road configuration stays the way it is, and obviously they're expressing the same sort of views I have, the problems, I think I personally would like to be involved in developing signs. I'm thinking what they put in Milford and also in Hollis, which says a sign set well back from the junction requiring, I know you can't enforce it, requiring drivers to indicate their intentions, even if they're staying on the main road, that they have to signal what they do, where they're going, because I don't think, unless you've got drivers who are coming up Madeline Bennett and intending to go in Old Bloodview, clearly indicating that they're going to do that, which means putting out their left indicator, I don't think the buses have got a hope in hell. So I'm asking that when we get to the final view, I would seek the opportunity to, if you like, a road sign consultant, bearing in mind the needs of bus drivers, because I do know a lot about it, and obviously so do my colleagues. We really do have a problem at that junction. The bus drivers all agree with it. And so I think there's need to be a lot more thought. And frankly, with great respect to Kyle Fox, his sort of saying, well, if we get a problem, we'll look at it afterwards, doesn't buy me anything. If you want me to get really seriously supporting this project, we're going to have to give some real thought to how we don't have an accident at this junction.
I will share that on page 5 and 6 of the CLD review, item number 4, traffic review, has quite a few comments relative to signage and its proper placement per standards and bus queuing, et cetera, et cetera. So we will, as I indicated, review this with Kyle Fox, cross-check his comments versus their comments versus our design. And then at that point, we'll have a sign plan, if you will, that shows all of the signs and striping, et cetera. And that'll be part of, I mean, we can issue that to Tim, and if he feels it should be distributed with the board members, so be it, and we can see what comments may come out from that.
Well, I'm sure Tim will certainly let me see the CLD comments anyway, and I'd be happy to give you my tuppence worth on that then.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Ken? Tom?
I just wanted to go back to the phasing to get one final crack at that, or at least the concept that the connection to Old Blood Road and the connection back to Madeline Bennett Road and repair and completion of the drainage and the sewer all has to happen at the beginning of this project before anything else can get developed. Certainly before certificates of occupancy can be issued
Certainly, I understand.
anywhere in the
Yeah,
project.
that's well understood. If I didn't convey that, then that's my error, but I
I
certainly
just wanted to
understand.
make sure that,
Yep.
okay, thanks.
Any others? Ken, let me ask you for two, just for my own personal convenience. On the plan on the front where you have kind of the diagram, it would be very helpful if each one of these boxes said sheet 5, sheet 6, sheet 7, sheet 8, so I could go in there and find whichever one I was looking for.
What would be the fun of that?
What would be the fun of that? And the other one, and this is much more personal to me and to Alistair, find a consistent place for the signature blocks so we don't have to hunt them. And I would love them to be on the right side of the page so that they're not all the way over by the binding when you bind them.
Anything else?
That's it.
Do we have, Mr. Chairman, do we
And
have?
that's a favor to me. I know we don't have a requirement for
It's-
where those signature blocks go.
It's harder than you might think to be consistent like that because of the nature of trying to reduce. Already these sheets,
Yeah.
these plan sets become, 40, 50 pages all of a sudden with cross sections, et cetera. So
Yeah, I completely understand. Usually there's, I don't know, 8 or 10 pages that you want signed, and if we miss one, then Tim makes me come back, and then
I understand. I'll see what I can do.
Thanks.
I don't have anything else at the moment. As I said, I'll be cross-checking the different comments, whether it be the community development memo, wastewater's comments, DPWs and CLDs. I'll be refining responses to that and hopefully having a meeting to check them off the list and be back. It would be my hopes that we could continue this to the May 19th meeting.
that's just what I was going to ask is when do you want to come back? Because
that's
otherwise you'll
right.
be renoticing neighbors if we don't pick a time and a date.
Yep.
You want May
Sufficient time
19?
Yes, it is.
For all things you're talking about?
It is.
I move that we continue this discussion to the May 19th meeting
Without further notice. to
without
abutters.
further notice to abutters.
In this room at 7:30.
7:30 in this room.
7:30 in this room.
Is there a second for that fully developed motion?
I'll
Alistair seconds it. All in favor of the continuance? I'm sorry, is there any discussion before we
No,
vote?
I was trying to second the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? 700 to continue to May 19th.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for your presentation. And that brings us to item 5 on our agenda, which is Anheuser-Busch LLC as the applicant and owner. Review for acceptance and consideration of final approval of a site plan to construct 3 building additions totaling 55,100 square feet and associated site improvements at the existing brewery. The site is located at 221 DW Highway in the I-1 Industrial Aquifer Conservation Districts and 100-year and 500-year flood hazard areas. Tax map 3D lot 31. Tim, is there anything that we need to know before we hear from the applicant?
Not particularly. The memo from Jillian covers pretty well the basics of the project. Anheuser-Busch is looking to move forward with 3 individual building additions, which will add a little over 55,000 square feet to the facility. We're certainly happy and glad to see the proposed expansion of the building here in Merrimack, and we certainly think that any of the issues that are raised in our memo are easily resolvable, and I think they're in a pretty good position to move forward here tonight.
Thank you, Tim. And I'll add to that the original package of materials sent to us over the weekend had request for a couple of technical waivers, and there's a sidewalk waiver which was at our seat here tonight for us to consider. With that, once you're all signed in, please introduce yourself and tell us about the project.
Hello, my name is Greg Kapp. I'm the resident engineer at the brewery, and I'm also a town resident. And Tom's gonna.
Tom Zajac. I'm a civil engineer with Hayner Swanson in Nashua. Also with us tonight is Tom Jokers from Anheuser-Busch.
Good evening.
We're here tonight, as Tim said, with a site plan seeking application acceptance and final approval for a proposed expansion at the existing brewery. I'd like to give a brief presentation, and then hopefully we can answer any questions you may have. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the site, so I'll try to keep it brief as far as recapping. Over here on the display plan, I have sheet 1, which shows the existing site, 221 Daniel Webster Highway. That's lot 31, map 3D. The property is zoned I-1 industrial, and also portions of it are located within the Aquifer Protection District and the flood hazard areas. The lot is 196 acres. It's abutted by various industrial, commercial, and undeveloped properties. There's an additional 100-acre Anheuser-Busch lot just located on the other side of the railroad tracks. That is lot 32. It's adjacent to the Merrimack River. The application before you is just for work proposed on lot 31. The Anheuser-Busch Brewery has been in use since 1970. It's one of 12 breweries nationwide. The northern portion of the site is where the existing brewery is. The development area is roughly 60 acres. The current building area is right around 590,000 square feet. The central portion of the site contains some athletic fields, the area where the tours take place, and also the stables for the world-famous Clydesdales. The southerly portion of the site is currently undeveloped and wooded. There are 202 full-time employees. They operate 24/7 on 3 shifts, roughly 130 in the daytime shift and 35 on the other 2 shifts. Access to the site is provided at the existing 4-way signalized intersection on Daniel Webster Highway. The employee visitor parking lots, which are located along the westerly portion of the property nearest to Daniel Webster Highway, they have about 720 spaces. This is for employees and visitor parking. There's additional trailer and truck parking lots located throughout the property. The main body of the site is generally flat. It sits about 40 feet lower than Daniel Webster Highway.
I'm sorry, did you say 202 employees in 3 shifts and then 700 parking spaces?
Correct.
So you got like 10 to 1 what you actually use for your own employees?
Correct.
Other than the events, obviously, that are there.
The existing site is serviced by municipal sewer and water by Pennachuck. The proposed project, the reason for the project is Anheuser-Busch is looking to construct a new can line. So it's a packaging use, which will also result in more brewing and warehouse capacity needed on site. Those are the 3 building additions we're proposing. Each of the 3 building additions, the 3 building additions will total about 55,000 square feet, which is roughly a 9% increase to the existing building area. There are 2 additions located in the southwest portion of the site. A 27,000 square foot packaging addition and a 5,000 square foot brewery addition. Additionally, there's a 23,000 square foot warehousing addition located in the northeasterly portion of the site. The project is anticipated to add approximately 38 employees and will generate roughly 30 new truck trips per day. The associated site improvements, there's new loading docks and reconfiguration of existing parking and sidewalk areas, and also utility relocation and stormwater management. The total disturbance associated with this project is approximately 4.7 acres, or 2% of the entire site. And there are no new disturbed areas. They are all within existing either parking lot areas or grass lawn areas. I'd just like to talk about a few key issues before we open up for questions. We did appear before the Conservation Commission a few weeks ago, and we had a detailed discussion regarding salt and fertilizer use. The two recommendations brought forth by the Conservation Commission are acceptable to Anheuser-Busch. Just so you know, Anheuser-Busch currently has a contract with a local plowing company who is Green Snow Pro certified, and they will also include the fertilizing recommendations into their landscaping contract. Stormwater, always a important issue, especially since we're so close to the river and within the Aquifer District. Anheuser-Busch currently operates under an EPA multi-sector general permit for industrial activities, including consistently updated and comprehensive stormwater pollution and prevention plan. Industrial wastewater flows to an on-site sewer treatment plant and eventually to the Merrimack Town plant. The existing drainage system on-site drains in a southeasterly fashion to an existing head wall located at the corner of the brewery and then flows to the Merrimack River. There are many measures in place to prevent the discharge in case of leaks or spills on-site, as governed by the EPA permit, including a dry weather pump back system at the head wall outlet. There is also an existing detention and infiltration basin located in the northern portion of the site. It was constructed in 2004 as part of a trailer parking lot addition. The proposed project adds roughly 1.5 acres of new impervious area. And as with all projects, the goal of stormwater management is to improve the quality and reduce the quantity of stormwater leaving the site. And on this site, we're considering the areas that we're touching. So we're trying to improve the quality and quantity within the two areas that we are disturbing. We are accomplishing this through the use of deep sump catch basins, 2 oil water separators, and a subsurface infiltration system sized to completely store and infiltrate up to and including the 25-year storm. The net result is a decrease in peak flows and volume leaving the site compared to the pre-development condition. Tonight we are seeking a number of waivers. The first
Before you get into waivers, you
Sure.
probably have presented us enough to determine whether the application's complete. So why don't we take up that question?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the excellent presentation we've got is gives us complete understanding of the project, and therefore we're in a position to accept it for review.
Second by Ms. Christensen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 700 to accept it for review. Now, please proceed with your.
Just wanted to take a quick step back before I talk about the waivers and just disclose kind of our project timeline. We were approached by Anheuser-Busch, I'd say in mid-January, and they are looking to hopefully break ground as soon as this June, which backtracking from that with our various permits, we were out there this winter in February surveying the site and going as fast as we can to meet the 317 town submittal. So a few of these items, waiver items, are in relation to that and the timing that we had, but also considering the project and the site itself. So there's 2 different waiver letters. The March 17th letter includes a request for waiver of a boundary and topographic survey of the entire parcel. We believe this would be a hardship and extraordinary unnecessary cost to the client considering the size of the project. Request number 3 and number 4 have to do with submitting landscaping and photometric site lighting plans. Again, due to our timeline, we were asking for a waiver on those items. Lighting currently exists on the site. The site is well landscaped along the front portion of the site. We didn't think it was necessary to submit formal plans for the areas we are disturbing.
Let's see if we can tackle those 3 waiver requests before we move on to the sidewalk one.
Sure.
Does the board have questions or comments about those requests? What's the will of the board with respect to those waiver requests?
So,
Nelson?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to grant the waiver for a perimeter survey on this site because of the strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations. Specifically, the fact that this site has been surveyed previously, and it's on record as having been surveyed, and we're familiar with the boundaries.
Thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll recognize Councilor Koenig's second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Yeah.
7-0-0 to grant the first waiver. Is there a motion with respect to the landscaping plan waiver?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the client is excused the producing a landscape plan and also the photometric site lighting plan. The modifications are very minor, and therefore I think that the waiver is quite fair, and strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and they're not in conflict with the spirit and intent of the regulation.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to grant both of the remaining waivers that were requested for the technical issues. Is there a second for that? Second by Desiree Fault. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 7-0-0. Okay, let's talk about sidewalk waiver now.
Okay. Just reading from my letter from today. Section 7.05D19 requires that commercial, industrial, and non-residential site plans provide for a paved pedestrian way or sidewalk along all existing or proposed streets. We are asking a waiver request to allow the proposed building additions and site improvements on the subject property without the construction of a paved sidewalk along our Daniel Webster Highway frontage. The basis for the waiver is as follows. The subject parcel, lot 31, measures approximately 196 acres and contains 4,800 linear feet of frontage along Daniel Webster Highway, nearly a mile. This section of Daniel Webster Highway contains sidewalks, pedestrian crosswalks, and signals along the westerly opposite side, but does not contain any on our frontage. The proposed project is minor in nature when compared with the overall property in the existing development. As stated, the proposed brewery expansion will increase the total building area by approximately 55,000 square feet, or 9%. The project will disturb approximately 4.7 acres, or 2% of the property. Fourth point, the existing Anheuser-Busch facility has been in use for 45 plus years without the need for sidewalks along its frontage. The site is unique in that the building and parking areas are significantly set back from the roadway. Providing a new pedestrian connection from the site to the roadway would prove difficult and expensive due to the topographic conditions. In addition, it is likely that portions of the sidewalk along the roadway would need retaining walls and guardrails due to steep slopes. Fifth point, this section of Daniel Webster Highway, also known as New Hampshire Route 3, is controlled and operated by the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. It is our understanding that New Hampshire DOT would not be in favor of further sidewalk construction along this section of Daniel Webster Highway at this time. It is our client's opinion that the waiver request meets the spirit and intent of the regulation, as there is ample area on site for employees to walk, and there is existing sidewalk located on the opposite side of Daniel Webster Highway. Furthermore, the requirement to construct sidewalk along its entire frontage would be a hardship because it would mean considerable expense to construct not only the paved sidewalk, but also the associated cost of potential retaining walls, guardrails, pedestrian traffic signals, ramps, crosswalks, etc.
Thank you for that. What's the will of the board with respect to the sidewalk waiver? Nelson?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just would like to call attention to this item number 5, in that I don't have any evidence that this is a factual statement. We do have a letter from New Hampshire DOT talking to the northern section of Route 3 north of Bedford Road, and this section of road was not included, or not intended to be included.
If I may interrupt you, Nelson, that letter from DOT was regarding the entirety of the DOT section of their control and their jurisdiction. So it includes not only the northern part north of Bedford Road, but it was also south of Greeley Street as well. They are not going to support construction of sidewalks in their jurisdiction until such time that the sidewalk master plan is complete.
That's the
Okay.
piece right there at the end that I wanted to make a comment on, because the suggestion in the letter that DOT doesn't like sidewalks or doesn't support them is is a statement which gains some steam in various venues, and it isn't what DOT suggested in its letter, and it isn't, in fact, correct. What they've asked for is that the town actually come up with a plan. Once you have a plan, they
Yes.
like sidewalks.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
Thank you.
and it was my understanding from discussions with them that it did not apply to the southern portion, mainly because they've already built a sidewalk over most of this portion already.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to correct that. In my view, it isn't quite accurate the way it's written, but, and the chairman has straightened it out. And I agree with what the chairman has said with
Thank you,
regard to a
Nelson.
master plan.
Desiree.
I have one, guess, question for clarification. You're saying in item number 2 that the sidewalk on the along the westerly side exists. Is that for the entirety, for the entire duration of your property? On the opposite side, that sidewalk exists continuously?
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Nelson.
Only if we wanted to discuss the possibility of a walking sidewalk that would connect to Route 3 from your property. That's
Yes.
something that you might want to consider. I don't think our regulations specifically require it, but the fact that many people do walk up and down that road, there's no safe way to do that. There's no sidewalk there, as I understand it, your access road to Route 3.
Yeah, item 4 in your memo sort of touches on that, suggesting that it would be difficult or expensive to make a pedestrian way internal to your site to lead out to DW Highway. And I, too, wanted to comment on that, but let me begin by saying, in the aggregate, I support your request for a waiver, and if there's a motion on the table eventually, I would support it and vote for it. Having visited the site for car shows and Ribfest and all of that, a lot of people walk into that site on those special events. Probably doesn't happen day to day with the regular workforce, but an awful lot of people park at Colesman and other off-site places and walk into that site. And something to make that safe to do for those events. And although it's described here as being expensive, when you look at the width of that entrance driveway, taking 3 feet on the side and putting a white stripe along it with a little pedestrian way so that it's just got that visual barrier for the cars that says this area is for the people and this area is not, would go a long way towards that event traffic. There's also a site further south that talked about putting up those little plastic, I don't want to call them a bollard because they're not a bollard, they won't stop anything, but
Cones.
it's not really a cone though, it just sticks straight up and it's
Oh, yeah.
flexible and springy and,
You're talking about the GT Solar proposal that they had come up with?
well, I think it was GT Solar, to kind of divide a little walking lane off to the side when the weather's appropriate or when events are appropriate to do that. Just to take a section of the walkway and move the pedestrians out of your traffic flow. Those don't seem very difficult and complicated. Nelson kind of hit the nail on the head with saying our regulations really don't reach your internal flows like that, but as a person in town who's visited there quite a bit, it sure would be a great thing to try to aim for, accomplish without a lot of dollars, if you were willing to consider it. And that's the only comment that I would offer on that one. I don't think it's as difficult and expensive as number 4 perhaps suggests. Is there any other comments or questions? Is anyone willing to make a motion with respect to the sidewalk waiver? Desiree.
I move that we grant a waiver to the sidewalks, given that the strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and the waiver would not be contrary to the spirit of the intent of the regulations. And then just expand on that because that sidewalk is entirely connected on the westerly, and that meets the master plan goals that we're headed for with the sidewalk plans for town, to get a continuous connection all the way across Daniel Webster Highway from north to south. So we appreciate that. And then we would like to see some modifications to the site if we would encourage modifications to the inside of the site to get pedestrian way in there, whether it be with markings or the bollards that are. Trying to think what I had in my mind earlier, but they're basically kind of permanently installed bollards that you can hit with a car and they kind of fold over and then they come back up. But just we can share that information too. So that.
Yeah, pedestrian safety. So is there a second for Desiree's motion to grant the waiver with the encouragement for some internal changes? Second by Lynn. She beat you to it, Nelson.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor of granting the waiver, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 7-0-0 for that waiver.
It's slightly out of place, but I just wanted to compliment Tom on the waiver letter itself. If we got waiver letters that were written that way for every waiver, it would make the job of the board much easier.
Yeah, Tom, you deserve that pat
And
on
in
the
fact,
back. You're right.
and I would like to further add to that, I thought the presentation we've had was also incredibly clear, made it easy to understand. I mean, the plans were quite difficult to understand, but your presentation made it crystal clear to me what you're trying to do.
Next time we won't submit any plans, we'll just come and talk.
Sounds like a
Thank you,
solution to me. Are there any members of the public who wish to weigh in? Knowing that the room is empty, I've just got to go ahead and gavel and public hearing open and see none, close it. And now, Greg, you had something.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that pedestrian safety is very important for us, and we do have a workplace transport plan internal to our site, and we can evaluate those suggestions, whether it be a painted line or some type of designation of where to walk.
Yeah. It looks like when you go down your entrance driveway, it's quite wide, and it looks like you have more than enough room for 2 lanes of traffic to pass each other and still something on the side.
It's wide. We do have trucks, and that they stage there. So,
The trucks
yeah,
pull off.
there's probably there could be 5 trucks in a row waiting to get through the gate. So, we don't encourage anyone to walk there.
Yeah, probably
And
not on the days with the event. Maybe there's something that you guys can do that comes and goes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I know that, well, you guys know that. You know how many people come and visit you guys for events like Rib Fest and all of that. So. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I was a judge last year for Rib Fest.
Yeah.
Nelson, you had a hand up?
I had one question. I know you've got an infiltration system in place and well-designed, and I noticed that the quantity of the water going into the Merrimack River has gone down, and the quality has gone up because there's a lot of roof water going in there, which is pretty clean to start with. My question had to do with the location of, it's my understanding there are wells on the site that belong to you and they don't show on the plan. And I just wondered of the proximity of those wells to the infiltration system. Is there any conflicts there? Are they separated sufficiently so as not to be infiltrating water into your wells? And it was just a question.
They are separated.
They're separated sufficiently.
Yeah, sufficiently, yeah.
Are your wells still active, or you guys get all the water from Pennachuck now?
Oh yeah, we use all of our water from Pennachuck. We do use wells for irrigation and some cooling tower purposes.
So that's the only reason you guys use the wells now?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to do with your application, but why was the decision to switch from the wells to the Pennachuck? Do you know?
Not really. I mean, the Pennachuck water is clean. It meets our standards. It's what we're looking for. So
Yeah.
I remember
that decision was before my time, frankly.
some years ago I came across a very old brochure for that site that was bragging about the quality of the well water that they were getting off of the site and calling it the site that was recognized by Chief who was located this site way back. Yeah, there you go.
Well, it is good water.
And I just always curious and never had an opportunity to ask why there was a decision to go with Pennachuck instead of making use of those.
I would just say that across all our breweries, we pick consistent water sources and do our own internal treatment as well to make sure that a Budweiser in New Hampshire tastes the same as a Budweiser in Los Angeles. And water is a critical ingredient to our beers, and it's really all about consistency for us.
Thank you for that. What's the will of the board with respect to the proposal
Mr. Chairman,
overall?
I'd like to make a motion that we can grant final approval for the site plan, subject to the various conditions that were listed in the memo produced by Gillian.
Is
But
there-
I don't see need to add to anything myself.
Is there a second for Alistair's motion?
I'll second that.
Nelson got that one in first this
Okay.
time, so recognize Mr. Disco for the second. Any further discussion? Desiree?
I just have one quick question. Item 11D in the memo talks about the parking requirements, a total of 47 spaces that are required for the additions. What, you guys did add a parking lot to it, and that you didn't take any away for the,
The
Yeah,
parking
they
spaces in the rear of the site that we're touching are for truck parking. So the 720 spaces that I mentioned that are along the whole
Mhm.
front of the property, we'll be providing Tim a detailed calculation on how we meet the
Okay.
minimum regulation.
We had
We're-
some,
Yeah.
we had some back and forth with Tom about trying to find old plans and the parking that was on the plans. We couldn't really find it, so Tom was gonna do some calculations off the aerial photography for the site. to
There's a
make
couple
sure
different uses, obviously, within the building, so we're trying to break it down per the
Per the requirements of the
the
regs.
Yeah.
ratios in the code. So we're more than 100 more than the minimum
Yeah.
required, so.
very good.
Nelson?
I had one more question I forgot to ask.
Please do.
We can still move on. And that was the floodplain lines that were shown on the plan. I'm familiar with the 100-year and the 500-year, and this refers to a AE flood line, and I wasn't familiar with that terminology.
The AE is one of the 100-year flood zones. So we've had some discussions on this. A lot of times when the flood zone issues come up, when zones are remapped or areas are remapped, it comes up during site plan applications like this because your regulations require us to go and put the new flood zone on the plan. Long story short, the last time Anheuser-Busch was before you in 2004, the map was redrawn in 2009. So if you look at the map itself, it shows that we are within the 100-year floodplain and also obviously the 500-year floodplain. When you look at the topography in our survey versus the base flood elevation for a 100-year storm, we are well above that. So I believe we have to provide a certification as part of the building permit process that essentially says we're higher than the 100-year flood zone.
Higher than the 100, but
Higher
not
than
the
the
500.
100-year or AE flood zone.
Yeah, the AE terminology is new to the 2009 flood maps as opposed to the terminology that was previously used.
Okay, that was unfamiliar to me, and I wondered what it was, you know, so it is but you're saying, even though it's mapped on
6
there,
years old.
it's not correct from your topographic survey?
Correct. Correct.
Is that what I heard? Yeah.
For
But it-
instance, we have the base flood elevation is around elevation 117.
Yeah.
And our lowest proposed building elevation is around 121.5. So we're 4.5 feet higher than that.
Okay, especially that new bottling line or
Correct.
canning line.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Right, and the 500-year line doesn't show on the plan then, or does it? Because the AE is the line I was talking about.
Correct.
500 years.
We are not showing the 500-year. I'm not sure if we have to.
I think, do we not require that anymore?
No.
No?
500, no.
That's new to me. Okay.
I think either way, the line probably isn't on their property.
Exactly.
Well,
It's got to be on.
is DW Highway
Not
part
the
of it?
line.
What?
The line doesn't have to be. Line's well on the other side of DW Highway.
No, it's not.
For the 500?
Yes, this is not on the other side of the Daniel Webster Highway.
Either way. Tim tells me the regulation doesn't have to say it.
I must be changing
The plans will comply with the requirements of the regulations before signature. We'll make sure everything is all
We can
set.
double check.
Okay. It was FEMA's plan to switch the very logical and understandable 100s to
Yes.
500s to a
Yeah.
bunch of alphabet soup.
You got it.
That unconsecutive letters that don't have any relation to what's actually going on.
Don't even get me started on what shaded X means.
No. I get the idea that from FEMA's standpoint that the 100-year flood happens every 8 years, but still didn't help it to rename it to things that don't make any sense.
I do have one item just to bring the board's attention to, with regard to the motion for the conditional final approval. We did receive also today comments from the fire department, 2 of which deal primarily with post-planning board approval that I will be adding as general conditions of approval in the notice of decision. Tom, I think you got a copy of those. The second 2 comments, we're just going to make general conditions of the approval regarding the sprinkler and contacting the fire marshal for permitting and whatnot.
Okay. Thanks for that. With that, there's a motion and a second to grant final approval. Any other discussion?
Nope.
All in favor of granting conditional final approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 7-0-0. Thank you for the presentation.
very
Did a
much.
nice job,
Thank you,
folks.
gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Did a great job.
Thanks, guys.
Item 6 on our agenda is discussion and possible action regarding other items of concern, and listed there was what was intended to be a discussion of soils information for potential ordinance amendments as requested by Pete Gagnon. Pete was not prepared to have his material ready for today, and so he's asked that we take a look at that in a future date. I don't know, specific to May 19th?
May 19th is when we've penciled it in for now.
Okay.
What?
May 19th is when we've penciled
Penciled
it in.
it in. Penciled it in. I don't have any other discussion and possible action regarding other items of concern. Does anyone else have any? That brings us to the approval of the minutes of April 7th, 2015. What's the will of the board with respect to those minutes? Motion to approve as printed. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman, but I do have 3 relatively minor, I would tempted to use the word.
Please offer them up.
Yeah. On page 2, line 29, it says the second house would be in back on the new lot. I don't think the word in is needed. I think you could just cross it out. The second house will be back on the new lot. Very strictly on line 43. Very strictly on line 43, Bedford Road, should be a capital R on the R of road. And then if we go to page 3, on line 15, it says the planning board is not responsible for who must maintain the pipe. I think it would be easier if it said the planning board is not responsible for determining who must maintain the pipe.
Any other comments or corrections to the minutes?
Yeah, I had a question. On page 3, line 3, there's a person introduced by the name of Raymond Shea. And I didn't remember who he was, and he isn't. Page 3.
Go back to page 2, line 26. Then line 7.
He's the very first person
okay.
speaking.
Okay, now. Okay, again, who is he, please?
Sanford Surveying and Engineering, Inc.
Oh, it's way up there. Okay, I see way up. Sorry. Okay, it was so far back. I
didn't track that one. Back.
and,
That's okay. Anything else? Tom.
Zina was suggesting that back on page 2, line 29, that the intent was to say that the second house would be in the back half of the new lot.
Well, that would be perhaps even better.
I've made it as in back of.
In back of the new lot. Right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other changes or corrections to the April 7th minutes? No? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? 7-0-0. Oh, what? Abstaining?
She's abstaining.
6-0-1.
And Jeff's abstaining too.
Well, you don't have to abstain because you weren't there. You are actually allowed, but it's people's habit to do that. Yes. What's that? Jeff and Desiree. So that's a 5-0-2 approval. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which
Mr.
is
Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
second. Second by Jeff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? We are adjourned. Thank you. Don't forget to turn your microphone off.